Greetings, fencers. So today we're going to go through some of the primary source words for parry found in the German sources. Parrying is a later French and English fencing term, but in the Zettel we actually see multiple words that have slightly different meanings but are all encompassed by this term parry. So the first is found in some sources including 32278 and 4488, and this is the word Versetz or Versetzen. Now you'll recognize the first word for, it's the word before, and the word Setz is the word set in English, like setting, putting, or placing, and so the most literal translation is before set or set before. This is the word that is translated to parry, or sometimes displace, and so looking at when this word often comes up and the literal meaning, it's setting before you, so interrupting the opponent's sword and everything is remaining at front of you. Or, in a more general sense, it's sometimes translated as opposition, like you're setting yourself before someone. And then the other version of this word, found in other sources, and sometimes in the same source, is versetzen. This is where a native German could probably explain this a lot better, but I'm going to give a couple ideas and give it a try. It could be that these ver and vor prefixes were dialect or pronunciation differences, or it still just means before, or it was putting the emphasis on displacing or misplacing their cut. Or it came from the fact that Liechtenauer has many quotes that warn of making versetzen. The prefix ver is very broad prefix. It has the same ancestor as the English prefix per, pre, and pro, which can be used in completely different words like perceive, permeate, or percent. But often ver adds a leaving or mistake meaning, like laufen means walk or run, but verlaufen means miswalk or to get lost. Fallen means fall, verfallen means expire or decay. It could be a somewhat negative connotation, and in manuscripts with both, it could be that the Versetz was necessary, but the Versetz was a mistake. So this ver prefix was maybe added as a reminder that setting before is not always ideal. Mark, that is that you shall not parry as the common fencers do. When they parry, they hold their points high or to the side. We are given a good way to versetz, and they're called the Vier Versetzen, or often translated as the four parries. These are the four cuts that counter the four guards. Because you're making cuts at them, all the sword setting or displacing ends up being in front of you as a versetz. And we're told to versetz with our cuts and thrusts. When you will parry, then parry with your hew or with your stab. Oder wenn du versetzen willst, so versetz mit deinem Hau oder mit deinem Stich. The next one is absetz or absetzen. Ab meaning off, away, aside, or from. So we get the literal translation of away set or setting away. This word also means parry or displace. In fact, this is actually the word that stayed and directly means parry. You'll find absetzen in 1800s German military saber. So, looking at the sources and wording, we see that this setting is not left at front of you, but actually to the side of you. So it's prioritizing the sword over hitting. It can be done in one tempo or with two. Even Schreinkut is stated as an absetzen, to set aside and protect the lower openings. Another word we see is bricht or break. An example is with the hangings, where we're told that they can drive forward to attack and also break or stop other attacks. This could mean blocking, but looking at when this appears in the plays, it could have a deeper meaning of specifically attacking at the same time, so they have to stop. And then you always work so that he must parry you as quickly as you do him, and when you have trained yourself for this, so that you are ready for this when you parry someone, that you work nothing but a thrust or strike to it. Thus you may disrupt and break that which he had taken forward against you, because that he must certainly break and parry your before. Another word that comes up is bind. Bind is when the swords are in contact, but it could very well have the added meaning of only when the swords are actually bound and stuck together, meaning you cannot simply thrust forward like we're used to with blunts. Here we see the word bind used to block a sword. When he takes off above, then bind above on his sword strongly, in with the long edge to his head. A little added thing is the actual transcription has the word break at the beginning, but was left out of this translation. So to get that in there, it would be also break that when he above off take so bind on. Stuff like that gets important when you put a concept meaning on some of these words. Another word that comes up is winden, or winding. Winding is turning from hanging to another. Thus, hingen is also a position that appears when interrupting their sword. So approach in the plow and drive it swiftly with winding from one side to the other, and such that your point always stands still in front, and from that you may execute the parries. We later see the term gerade Versetzung, which means simple or direct displacement, and we also see the term schlechten Versetzung, meaning simple or bad parry, which is likely referring to the same thing as gerade. Bogen or bow, as well as Zollversetzung, which are hanging positions, as well as crown and context for versetzen with many types of cuts. And we see ablaufen, meaning running off. It can be used offensively, but it can also be used to deflect cuts, often described with the flat in defensive plays because it's a lot less consistent on an edge and can easily get stuck. And we see the statement in two manuscripts, one in Ringek, where after winding it says, "This is the boat." The word is nech in one and was nach in the other, so maybe it was a statement of this is a technique in the after and one had a mistake, and from that you may execute the parries. This is the boat, and into that you may strengthen with the long edge. Just something interesting. Let me know if you've come across stuff about it. So, I do like languages, but I'm not an expert on these things. I'm sure there's other words that show up as well, but hopefully this helps some people out. And there are other elements that have different words that we conglomerate into one word, with cuts, thrusts, guards, etc. I did make a video going through absetzen and ansetzen, or hanging versus shooting. You can check that out for more details on those primary words. Thanks for watching, keep studying, keep practicing.